Hey, it's Drybear. And Fellowship is the game you didn't know you needed, which is essentially an MMO light that allows you to do end-game PvE content without any of the fluff of having all these crazy subscriptions or completing major campaigns or spending weeks to months undoing quests and finding unlocks. You just get to play the end game, get stronger, and face increasing challenges in PvE. It's a multiplayer online dungeon adventure developed by Chief Rebel, published by Arc Games. Keep in mind that this is an early preview of the open beta playtest, so things are subject to change. Now, inside of Fellowship, you will be selecting a hero that has its own kit, expandable abilities, ultimates, and gear that specifies the playstyle of that character. And today, what I wanted to talk about was going through every single hero that's available in the game right now, talk through their kit, how they're played, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and also how they fit into the role system for the 4-man groups. And my hope is today that you'll walk away from this video with a good understanding of what all the heroes do, and potentially even help you pick your favorite one or two heroes that you want to rotate through as you start pushing through, because each of the characters have their own instance loot, their own gear and everything, so it is useful to be able to choose a main or secondary character that you're going to put most of your effort into if you plan to climb the leagues and get higher and higher in difficult content. Shout out to the Fellowship team for sponsoring this video. The open beta playtest is available on Steam now through September 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific. Be sure to sign up on Steam with the link in the description and the comments. If you're looking forward to the game, early access launches on October 16th. Be sure to wishlist the game on Steam now. But first, let's do a quick game overview for anyone who's just landing here from the start. There are 4-man parties inside of Fellowship. You'll see that in the top left corner here. You'll select 1 tank, 2 DPS, and 1 healer from the heroes selected, and then you'll go through and start pushing through all the different leagues as you go higher and higher. And with each of these, they'll have their own modifiers, scaling difficulty, and it does get pretty hard as you push through once the game is finally live. So from this list, you'll pick one of the tanks available for your tank slot, 2 DPS to pick through as well, and then a healer to round out your ranks. You'll start collecting gear from the drops that you do. The higher difficulty you do, the better gear that you get back from that, and you can start making your character stronger and stronger as you go. There are several dungeons that you can complete in the game that have their own requirement of how many enemies you have to defeat in order to clear out the dungeon itself, plus a boss at the end that has unique mechanics that scale with the modifiers on it as well. So whether you fill the role of playing tank, means you're pulling aggro and taking damage from enemies that are there, grouping up mobs, and typically choosing the route that you take through the dungeon, since the tank is the first one to start a pull. You also have melee and ranged DPS that each have their different roles and perspective value that they bring to the group, on top of just making fights shorter. The biggest detail is a dead enemy can do no damage, so if you have good DPS, whether you have a great tank or healer, often you can end the fight before it becomes a problem by just having really strong DPS. And lastly, you have your healer as well, and a good healer can make all the difference, keeping people alive as they get hit by mechanics, as they try to avoid things, but also managing your mana is a very good skill tactic that you need as a strong healer to be able to keep your team alive while also making sure you don't run out of mana in the process. Now, I also want to mention that there is a full talent tree for each of these heroes that you can select, and also you can get additional elements to be able to select multiples in a single row, and you'll start unlocking crazy new effects that modify your abilities in really interesting ways. On top of that, there is also a major talent tree as well, like this skill tree overall. And if you go to the left side here on the bottom right, I'm sure some of this will change as they get closer to release, but you'll have your mounts, everything here. You'll have your bonuses by pushing through some of the league content, but most importantly, especially for this video, is you'll have these extra abilities and modifiers on the left side, and this goes all the way up to the top here. So you'll notice that you get your ultimate ability here, then you get another modifier here, another cooldown, then you get an additional ability, you get modifiers for your existing abilities, or more talents points that you can spend on the talent tree, more abilities, right? So what I'm not going to do here is I'm not going to go through the full length of every ability in the character's kit once you've reached full endgame and you've unlocked all the leagues, which aren't even available yet in the build that I'm playing on right now. And so this is something that's going to add on to your skill set and add on to your playstyle, but I'm not going to dive into like like which talents to pick and what to go at, because I'm sure some of that will change as we get further along. Let's start top to bottom and just go through each character, starting with the most straightforward tank in the game, the War Master Helena. Also keep in mind, you can rebind any of your keybinds here by going down here. They actually have a limited settings option. I'm sure this is going to improve over time as well, but you have the option to right click down here, select an ability, but you could also select one of your relics, which is like a trinket that you can use. You can move all your like weapon ability, spirit ability. You can even put your mount on this as well. And at the very bottom, you have an option to change the keybind too. So what I recommend is before you dive into a dungeon, make sure you set up all of your buttons, all of your keybinds, everything on the right place that you want it to be in, so that when you need to, you can actually perform. Now, when it comes to Helena, she's actually, like I said, very straightforward. Your tankiness is related to that blue bar you see in the middle of the screen right next to your character. So this, can think of this as like a building damage reduction. This is a mechanic called toughness, and you have a few ways to generate toughness, but the higher this blue bar is, the less damage you will take. However, when you take damage, your toughness gets lowered. So it's kind of like a combination block damage reduction system with more of like a limited resource shield system rolled into one. And you get this through a various different means. The quickest way is going to be with the shields up ability, this ability here. So you activate this. This will raise your toughness by 60% and increase your block chance by 12 seconds. So while you're taking damage and tanking as Helena, what you're going to want to do is actually just use your toughness ability, your shields up, on regular cooldown. You'll also notice that you get this little buff icon above your name here, and that is going to be the block chance increase. And what you want to do is maintain this block chance increase, especially once you have good gear, pretty much all the time. You almost always want to have this block chance increase up at all times. It also allows you to mess around with the toughness that you get from it as well. The haste that you get from your build is also applied to this recovery as well, which means that you can get your shields up on all the time. So you basically want to get this toughness meter as high as you can and maintain it as long as you can, because that's what's going to keep you tanky. The worst Helenas versus the best Helenas, it's all going to come down to maintaining this toughness bar at all times. Now, that's the core of Helena, is maintaining that toughness. However, you have a bunch of other abilities that all interact together. You have some damage dealing abilities, so things like Power Strike, Shield Slam, or Shield Throw. However, rolled into Helena's kit is the ability to reset these cooldowns. So you'll notice that if we go to like our Measured Strike, at the bottom of Measured Strike, it will tell us that it reduces the cooldown of Shield Slam and Shield Throw every time we use it. So you pretty much always want to be spamming her first ability, Measured Strike, which is right here. Now, what's great about this is, unlike the other tank option in this game, everything you do is pretty much AoE for the most part. So you'll notice that like when I actually use my Measured Strike ability, it hits everything in an area around me. So I can actually go and like cleave. It's like a giant cleave. So this does pretty decent damage overall, and it does allow you to lower the cooldown on Shield Slam, which is your big one here, and your Shield Throw, which are two of your strongest abilities. Shield Slam specifically is a very strong ability. Not only does it do really good damage when it hits, so it can actually hit this, you can see that it does AoE, and the first target hit takes a large amount of damage, so very strong there. However, this is the other way for you to generate toughness. You can activate your Shields Up ability, Iron Breaker, and then you can grab your Shield Slam and slam that, and then will also allow you to add toughness. So you pretty much want to maintain the block buff from Shields Up by generating toughness, and then also use Shield Slam on cooldown, because this will allow you to deal damage and also build up toughness on top of that. But then once you've used Shield Slam, again, we can use Measured Strike. So look at the cooldown of Measured Strike, or the cooldown of Shield Slam here. Every time I use Measured Strike, it lowers the cooldown. So I can Shield Slam, Measured Strike, and then do Measured Strike, and then I can Shield Slam. So you're kind of rotating through those to keep yourself alive. They also have Power Strike. It's just another damaging ability that you can use. So it's just a heavy strike on a single target, but this also lowers the cooldown of Shield Slam and Shield Throw. So again, you can Shield Slam, then you can Measured Strike, and then you can Powered Strike, and you can see that we're now back to having Shield Slam again. So a very easy rotation. Your other option is going to be Shield Throw, and this one is very recognizable, the bouncing Captain America shield. So you can throw this out. It will bounce to each target once, dealing a large amount of damage, and then come back to you as well. It can do 5 total on additional, but when you use it, it also lowers the cooldown of your Shockwave ability. So again, you're using your Shields Up, keep yourself tanky, use your Shield Slam, and then your Shield Throw to make sure you have it for damage there. And then once you have that done, then you can reset those using your 2 red abilities. However, Shockwave is a super strong ability. So this is a 30-second cooldown. You'll do it, and it does a big AoE in a circle around you. Again, good amount of damage. It does like a movement slow on the enemies nearby. However, when you shockwave, it lowers the cooldown of shields up. So you're starting to see the theme here, right? So you can throw your shield slam and your shield throw to lower the cooldown on shockwave. Shockwave lowers the cooldown on shields up, and then you can use this to reset these cooldowns so you get shockwave back sooner. Power strike, measured strike, then be able to throw out the shield slam here, measured strike again, then throw out the shield wall, which lowers the cooldown, lowers the cooldown, lowers the cooldown. You're starting to get it. So beyond that, you have some utility aspects that are very, very tank centric. The first one is going to be your taunt ability. This one has an 8-second cooldown. You use it, it will taunt the target, and while they have that debuff on them, they will be focusing on you. This allows you to gather mobs that may have strayed from the group or are attacking somebody they shouldn't. You can tag them with the taunt ability, pull them over to you, and you're ready to go. You also have a charge ability that allows you to dash forward and do damage on this as well. And it also reduces the cooldown of your shield slam, shield throw, shields up, and shockwave. So you actually want to be using your charge ability in your rotation, not only to close the gap if an enemy is too far away from you, but also because it lowers the cooldown on all your other abilities. So haste is super valuable here for Helena, being able to move around and use these skills as much as possible, put them all on cooldown, and then head over to your normal abilities to set yourself up into your defense there. Now, when it comes to playing Helena, there's a lot of learning around when you need to use your toughness mechanic and when you don't. Again, obviously, if you're doing the hardest content you can possibly do, you want to make sure you're maintaining toughness by using shields up, using your other abilities to balance it out. But you want to make sure you're kind of planning that out. If you know that you're in a fight that isn't super dangerous and your healer can keep you alive through it, then it might be worthwhile to just kind of hold on to some of your shields up charges so that you can pop toughness, burn through it, and then pop it again very quickly. Even though you're wasting a little bit of the uptime on the block buff, just having that damage reduction can make a massive difference and you being able to survive an encounter, which is very, very straightforward. So that's Helena overall. Very easy to play, probably one of the simplest characters in the game, but incredibly effective. And honestly, there's enough niche like finesse that goes into Helena's kit that you often will tell the difference between a brand new Helena player and an experienced Helena player, because it's more about resource management, making sure that you're keeping track of your cooldowns, resetting your cooldowns as often as possible, and also maintaining your toughness to as high of degree as you can to make sure that you're taking the least amount of damage while you're running through a dungeon. And every role besides healer has interrupts, so if you run into abilities that can be interrupted, you'll see it on above their health bar, a cast ability. There will be very important abilities that you need to interrupt inside of the dungeons, but you can do that as Helena with the tank ability, so just interrupt them that way. It usually has the same icon in game as well, so if we jump in game, it's just called bash for her, so she can walk up and bash, and it has a 12-second cooldown, and it'll interrupt the spell casting if you need to, and it's something that you need to learn about playing anything but healer, basically. The other tanking option is the Twin Soul Meiko, and she honestly is the polar opposite of Helena. If Helena is the super straightforward, more on the finesse side, then Meiko is the complete opposite. She actually has a crazy amount of abilities and the ability to combine skills together to create her own playstyle, and a lot of experience and practice goes into knowing what ability to activate, what combo to use, and as you combo things together as a martial artist. So when it comes to Meiko, the only things that you need to focus on initially are going to be your purple, your blue, and your yellow abilities. So this is kind of what I'm calling them here, but they are the first 3 abilities you have available in your hero abilities list, and this is going to be your Rochambeau, your combination type skills. So you have Spirit Palm, which is a pink ability, you have Wind Kick, which is like this greenish, tealish ability, and then you have Earth Fist, which is a yellow ability or a fist technique. These are all just melee attacks, so this is a purple into a purple, and there's kind of doing that over and over. You can also do a blue into a blue into a blue, just like an AoE kick that you can deal damage with. And then 3, like, or I guess your yellow ability, Earth Fist, is going to be your yellow ability. However, the game will always remember your last 2 techniques that you used and then turn your combo finisher into an ability that matches the last 2 that you put, and order does actually matter, right? So if we go up here and I use that, you'll notice that I have this fighting techniques ability, which is grayed out right now. Again, the combination of abilities you use prior to this is what gives you your ability that you can use next. And there's 6 abilities built into this one ability based on the combination that you use. So super involved, very interesting, but takes a little getting used to as you dive into the game. And again, is kind of a nice polar opposite to Helena in that way. Now, there's a bunch of really useful, I would say every single one of these abilities is useful for some purpose. Earth Fist Barrage gets bonuses on Earthfall bonus. So using Rising Earth will give you stacks of Earthfall, which increases the damage of your next Earth Fist Barrage. So you can actually just use Rising Earth over and over. So if we go here and we do our Earth Fist into Spirit Palm, we'll get Rising Earth, which is a very nice single target. So big uppercut on that target here. But you'll notice that that also gave us a nice buff there as well. So top right corner under my big fat head. So if I cover this real quick, you'll notice that I now have 2 stacks of Earth Fall. So instead of doing the yellow into pink, if I do the yellow into blue, I get Earth Fist Barrage, which is a channeled ability. So I deal damage here, and I can do it again, 3 into 2, and then do channeled ability. That gives me those 2 strikes there. So I can do yellow into pink, uppercut, yellow into blue, channeled ability, yellow into blue, channeled ability, and it gives us a really nice single target damage output. So those are those 2 yellow starter techniques as well. The other thing that you really want to know about are the 2 pink ones, because that's where your defensives are going to come from. So both Double Palm Strike and Spirited Vortex are very useful for combat. So if I go pink here as my first into blue, it'll unlock Double Palm Strike, which when I use this, this gives me magic damage reduction as well as 5% parry for 15 seconds. So basically at the start of a fight, you almost always want to pink into blue to use this so you can get this buff here that gives you magic damage reduction and 5% parry. But you also want to use the other pink ability and maintain that at all times as well. So pink into yellow this time will give us the Spirited Vortex. So if we zoom out and look down, boom, you'll notice that now there's this purple pink whirlwind, this vortex going around me. This does continuous damage to all targets that are around me as well, which is super nice, but it also means that while it's active, you get 5% dodge and reduces their movement speed if anyone gets near you. So you basically want to pink into yellow, activate the vortex, pink into blue, and then activate the hit. And now if you look in the top right corner, you'll see that I have both of these buffs active. I have damage reduction on magic, 5% parry, and 5% dodge chance. So pink into yellow, pink into blue, that gives you your defensive buffs, and you're wanting to maintain these pretty much indefinitely all throughout the fight by using these over and over to keep those buffs active. Then finally, for the blue combinations, this is your damage dealing option that isn't like as focused on, so like Earth Fist can give you a really strong single target into the pummel, but blue gives you very strong AoE capabilities, right? So if you use the Wind Kick, which is blue into pink, that will give us our Rising Storm. So this is a very nice AoE ability, and it's spammable as well. So I can do blue into pink, kick, blue into pink, kick. And I can just do this over and over and over. And you'll see how much damage I'm doing in AoE here. Very strong, especially if we already have the AoE going at once and we're doing blue into kick, blue, pink, kick. We're doing lots of damage there. However, you'll notice, I just need to move this. You'll notice just like the Earth version, we have this double stack here for Stormfall. So when you use Rising Storm, it gives you the 2 stacks of Stormfall, which makes your next 2 lashing storm kicks deal double damage, which is your option. So if this is going to be blue into pink, which gives you that big kick that buffs you, then you do blue into yellow, and that gives us that big AoE there, and that's going to be that combo there. So rather than using just the Stormfall, we do first blue pink, kick, then blue yellow, kick, blue yellow, and kick. So you can see how all this comes together. You get really good single target damage from your yellow combos. You get really good AoE damage from your blue combos and good strong defense from your pink combo. So start the fight by using pink to make sure that you can kind of keep keep that dodge buff up, get your AoE marker there. If it's AoE, you're going to start going into your blue combos and then start using those for AoE as well, just to make sure you're kind of storing up that way. And then if you have single target, then you can go into your yellow combos to give yourself your bonus there and do some really good single target from that way. So 6 abilities total from this combo. They all have different purposes, but very, very useful. Then you've got the same usual suspects like we had with the other tank Helena. So you have your taunt ability. It has a different icon to it, but does the same thing. It just gives you forced aggro to your character. You also have a interrupt ability, so if you need to, you can use this to interrupt spell casting, and you have your movement ability, and in this case, it doesn't charge towards the target, it's just a directional dash. You can just dash in any direction. It has 2 charges with a 30-second cooldown, so you can store up some movement if you need to. The other option that you have before you get into your ultimate is going to be Shatter Earth. It's a big leap attack. It's not massive in size, but when you do it, it does really good damage, and it's good, and also stays around, and as you can see, it pulses. So ideally, you'll have your big pink AoE up going as well. Then you can do your Shatter Earth and keep the enemies inside of the Shattered Earth and then go into your blue combo. You can actually do a sizable amount of AoE damage with this character. Meiko, she's incredibly strong for that as well. Now, just like we saw with Helena, we had that defensive shields up ability. We have the same thing with Stone Shield. When I activate this, you'll see the Stone Shield go up and then come back in. While this is active, it does do damage to targets as well. So it will allow you to kind of get some AoE when it goes out as well. So you'll see some nice damage there. So you can use that as an offensive starter once you got all the enemies in the area. But most importantly, for each stone you have circling your character, increases your armor by 35% each, with up to a maximum of 105%. While at least one stone is active, you soak 50% of all damage you take. It also has a specific health value on the stones, and you can make the stones go up as well with cooldown there. So again, once you have your, you use your purple AoE going, you can Stormfall into it, then you can activate your defense, and you got crazy AoE burst on top of having really strong defense. So again, just like with Helena, you want to make sure that you have, as far as possible, always have Stone Shield active. Depending on how tough the encounter is, you may run out, but at least that gives you a little bit of defensive value. All right, so that covers the tanks. Let's talk about the damage dealers right now. As of right now, you have 2 ranged and 1 melee. There is another ranged coming at some point, depending on when they want to push that character out. So we've got 2 ranged with basically a fire, fire pyromancer kind of caster, and ice, frost mage kind of caster, and then your assassin rogue, sneaky beaky kind of character with backstabs and stealth and things like that. All right, let's continue in order and start with Rime, your frost mage caster. She is probably the easiest to play of these 3. So if you're looking for a very strong entry point, then I think Rime is a really strong choice. Not only does she have really good single target, really good AoE, but she's one of the few characters that starts with a personal defensive cooldown from the very beginning with Frost Ward. This can go a long way to surviving some encounters and also easing the pressure that your healer has in some encounters. Some boss fights have non-stop group-wide damage, so characters that have the ability to maintain their own HP and use defensive cooldowns make a big difference, especially when your healer is under stress. So when it comes to Rime, she has 2 main mechanics, and they're kind of tied together. So you'll notice that if I use my first ability, Frostbolt, we'll start from very simple. This is just a single target cast ability. So you cast it, you finish the Frostbolt, boom, it does frost damage to the target. You can see even does a very large amount comparatively to some of the other things we've been looking at. When you use Frostbolt and a few other abilities, you will gain what's called Anima. And this is this blue bar that's filling up at the bottom of the screen. This anima, when you fill it up all the way, will turn that anima into a really nice frost orb. So you see that little orb there? So this is a winter orb that you get. However, these 2 are tied together because there are ways that you can generate anima by using certain abilities. You'll see that anima filling up on its own. When you get to 9 anima, it'll jump into a winter orb, but you also have ways to generate full winter orbs on their own. The primary version of that is going to be Cold Snap right here. So this is a single target ability. It's instant cast. It does a large amount of damage. And when you activate this ability, so you see how anima builds up here. When anima gets to 9, I get a winter orb. But if I use this Cold Snap, boom, I just got a free winter orb straight up from the bet. So anima is like the secondary resource that builds into winter orbs, but there are ways to actually create winter orbs by using abilities as well, and one of those is going to be Cold Snap. So, we need to actually activate this. Your primary rotation is probably going to be just around using Cold Snap to make sure you generate enough winter orbs so that you can use your really strong abilities, but once you have that set up, you're good to go. So this question becomes, what do you do once you have winter orbs? Why are winter orbs so special, and why do I care about them? Well, because your 2 strongest abilities can consume winter orbs to activate them. So you have two different versions. You have your Glacial Pulse here, which is just a single target massive chunk of ice that does ridiculous damage. This is like a normal Frostbolt here, 2300. If I use my big Glacial Blast, which costs 2 winter orbs, it does 9500. I've had this go upwards of like 100k crits and stuff like that. It hits really hard, but you can see that it's limited because it costs 2 winter orbs. So you need to build up enough anima on your own. So, you know, it requires 18 anima, or it requires 2 cold snaps to be able to build it up winter orbs to be able to cast it. So it's super strong for that, gives you a really nice damage increase for Glacial Blast. However, if you find yourself in an AoE situation, like there's lots of enemies all around, like say these mobs here, you'll be able to use an alternate winter orb ability that's built for AoE instead of single target. So here for Glacial Blast, that's single target, but if you go over to Ice Comet, this is the AoE version. As you can see, this also costs 2 winter orbs. So I can activate this one instead, which delays, summons a giant meteor that crashes down and deals damage, and this uses 2 winter orbs as well. So the core rotation of Rime is using your basic abilities like Cold Snap and your Frostbolt to build up anima and winter orbs, and then when you have the opportunity, you spend those winter orbs either with a comet or a big chunk of ice that does really strong damage, whether you're doing single target or AoE, which is super, super cool. Now, she also has some movement ability. She has an ice dash, which she can use to kind of slide around the ground, very similar to Meiko, and you have the kind of double charge activation system, so you have that available as well, which is really cool. Because you're not a healer, you have an interrupt as well. 20 seconds on this one. It's not quite as fast as melee, but you'll have the ability to interrupt enemy spell casting from range, which is really strong. Super cool from that. We also talked about Frost Ward already. You activate this and get damage reduction for a period of time, which can really help your healer out if you get into a tough spot. And the other basic ability you need to be aware of is going to be Freezing Torrent. So this is going to be a really easy way to generate anima. This is a channeled ability on one target that does a large amount of damage. It's actually really, really strong, kind of comparable in a way to Glacial Blast from that as well. So this is a channeled ability. As you channel it, you get anima per tick. So tick, 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 tick. We keep getting more and more anima over and over and over. And as that does damage, we build up anima. Anima turns into winter orbs, and we can spend those on big abilities. And your other option is going to be Bursting Ice. Very straightforward. It only lasts 3 seconds, but when you activate it, it marks the target, and that target will then pulse AoE damage for a few seconds. So another way to do damage. So you can build that up there, throw down a comet, put down the AoE pulse, and then you're just building anima, spending winter orbs, building anima and orbs, spending winter orbs, doing your AoEs here, channeling on that as well. So again, very straightforward, really easy to pick up, a very strong character, and it doesn't really take too much to understand how to do a really, really good job with this character, while also having some really good defensives too. Next up is Mara, and even though they have Mara marked as a 1-star difficulty, I personally would argue that she's easily 2 or 3, depending on how you play her. In fact, I've seen a lot of people come in, play the game, try out all 3 DPS. They do really, really well with Rime. They do pretty good with Ardeos, and then I've seen a lot of people just struggle really hard with Mara, and it's just because the way her resource system is set up, it takes a little practice and some know-how on how to manage it, so we'll probably spend more time talking about that here, but let's dive into Mara and who she is as a damage dealer. So Mara is a single target melee. She focuses on using her blades to be able to attack the target, and you'll probably recognize this, but she has this built up energy resource, which is the pink bar underneath my character, and then you have combo points that you'll build up by using abilities. These combo points are required for the abilities that spend them. So you'll notice on the bottom screen, I have these gray abilities that are grayed out. They will only allow me to use them once I have combo points. And if you look on the ability itself, so you have your single target dot hemorrhaging strike, this requires combo points, and that will extend the duration of the dot based on what you have available. You also have an AoE spender, which is your arachnid assault. When you activate this, it spends spiders everywhere and does AoE damage on top of that. Then you also have your single target ability as well, which is Queen's Fang. So depending on how many combo points you have, you may want to do AoE, or if you're up against, say, a single target attack, you may want to actually go up and then use your single target on it as well. But one thing they'll notice about her in general is that she actually gets very resource starved early on, especially depending on how much haste you have and how that affects your abilities. You can actually get really stuck just kind of you could spend all your energy and then all of a sudden you have none left. Like you just do this and you just keep spamming and you keep doing this over and over and you spam and spam. And then all of a sudden you're out of energy and you can't do anything. This happens to a lot of Mara players. Like right now I have no energy, no combo points. I can't do anything. So how do you manage this resource system properly? You have your builders and your spenders. So we talked about the spenders here, your dot, your AoE, and your single target. However, you have two builders to look at as well. So your builders are going to be this ability here, backstab. This does a certain amount of damage. So you see I did 815 there, but since it's called backstab, if you hit them from behind, it will do more damage. You pretty much always want to be behind the target if you can help it. They were nice enough to put this little chevron arrow at the front, so you can always tell where the back of the target is, even if they have kind of very odd animations. So you kind of build that up there. So you have your single target with backstab, and then your AoE builder is skittering blades, which does less damage, but also allows you to deal damage in an area, right? So you can come over here as just like as this Mara is doing, and you can do AoE, or you can do single target that way. And once you have it spent up, then you can do your spenders on that front as well. So that's kind of the core of the builders. You're using either backstab and single target, or you're using skittering blades in AoE to build. However, if you just use those and your spenders, you're going to feel really clunky on Mara. And I think this is one of the hardest parts about new players learning Mara in the first place, is being able to kind of build these up and use it. So what is the savior? What is the linchpin for this build? That's going to be Widow's Bite. So this ability doesn't cost energy, but generates combo points. It has 3 charges by default and has a 9-second cooldown. So if I were to spam Queen's Bite, for example, it goes on cooldown, I have nothing left. So if I spend, I'm now stuck using only builders. What you want to do in this case is you want to alternate between using a builder, backstab, or skittering blades into Widow's Bite, because the builders cost energy and the Widow's Bite costs cooldown time. So by alternating between consuming energy and consuming cooldown time, by balancing between the two, you can make sure that you don't overspend your energy while building combo points, which is incredibly useful. It allows you to really do a lot with it. So an example of this would be, I have full energy right now and no combo points. So if I'm on a single target, I would get behind the target, use backstab into Queen's Bite. And you'll notice that with backstab into Queen's Bite, I still now have full energy and full combo points. So I can apply the dot to the target, builder, Queen's Bite, spender, builder, Queen's Bite, spender. But you'll notice that while I'm doing this, while I'm leveraging Queen's Bite, I can maintain a large amount of energy here. And you can even do, like right here, you have a little extra energy on hand. You can use 3 builders in a row to be able to get your combo points, spend, then builder into Queen's Bite, spend, builder into Queen's Bite, spend, so on and so forth. Now, as you get more haste and better gear and I start building things up on your character, this will get easier and easier. The cooldown on Queen's Bite will get shorter, which is nice. And also, as your crit value gets higher, when you crit on Mara, it gives you additional combo points that you can spend. So a lot of times you can end up building a lot faster. And there's even ways inside of the talent tree that'll make it so that when you spend combo points, you have a chance to not consume them. So you can use spenders multiple times in a row. But that's kind of the big thing here, is that when you at least for me, when I first started playing Mara, I felt like I was starved all the time. I couldn't manage my resources, and that's because you really want to balance the cooldown of Widow's Bite with the builder energy spending of your 2 builders to be able to use your combo spenders. Now again, just like with other characters, you have your interrupt because you're a melee, right? So you can come up here and you can kick the target to be able to interrupt spell casting. You do have a movement ability, which is just a blink. You blink behind the target, and this also does work on teammates as well if you wanted to. You could walk up. I don't know if this works on people not in my group. It does, so you can just blink on friendly targets as well. So you can blink to a friendly target like the tank, or blink to an enemy and line up that way, but allows you to reposition yourself. Later on, unfortunately, you don't get this defensive until later on in the tree, like further up here. I think one of these gives it to you, so you'll have that damage reduction there, which is quite nice, but it kind of builds into it there. Now, as you start unlocking more abilities, again, I said I wasn't going to get into this, but I think it is useful to know specifically for this character because it opens more for kit. You will get things like Brooding Shadows, or like Matriarch Macabre, or like Maiden of Death. All of these will give you ways to instantly generate combo points, increase the damage that you're doing through spenders, and also be able to increase your energy regeneration and haste on top of that as well. One of the cool things that you can do, like with Brooding Shadows, you can activate the stealth into a builder, and that gives you stealth, builder, get some damage there. You can see with the builder, if I use stealth into a builder, it fills up my combo points instantaneously. I can also activate my ultimate here, which allows me to just do some crazy spending. And with this, you can actually like Queen's Bite into Spender. You'll notice these little shadows that come out. So as I do this over and over, little shadows come out and they double my damage. So if you line everything up, she's very combo based. If you can get everything lined up just right and you have your ultimate ready with Matriarch Macabre and 2 stacks of shadows, you can go into shadow form and just build spend and do crazy damage to single target, which is super, super strong. Lastly, for DPS, we have Ardeos, and he is kind of the middle ground between Rime and Mara as it stands right now. Mara is very combo focused, very resource management focused, and can be quite challenging to play to strong effect, but once you get the hang of her and you have good gear, she's very strong. Rime is strong out of the gate and only gets better as you get better at her, but Ardeos is kind of in between. He's not as complicated as Mara, but he's certainly not as simple as Rime, as he does have some combo abilities that he can use. So let's talk about Ardeos. He is your fire mage, your pyromancer, your, he's got some really cool builds that goes along with this. So kind of similar to Rime, where we have this building resource, he has this building resource called Cinders. So if we go to his one of his simplest abilities, Infernal Wave, I put it on 1 because it's the one you spam the most. Old habits. But this is a castable ability that when you cast it and shoot it, this wave will fly along the ground and deal fire damage to the target. Every time you shoot it, you will build the Cinders resource. So Cinder is kind of like a secret resource. It's like that bar that Rime has. Every time I cast this, you'll notice these balls get brighter and brighter until they fill up, and then you get a full-on Burning Ember. So Cinder is the passive resource. Burning Ember is the combo resource that, so I got 3 there. It builds it up. Now I've got 3 embers that I can use, and you use that on his detonation ability. So you build it up by using various means, primarily Infernal Wave. Once you have enough, once you have enough of the Cinders, you unlock these Burning Embers that you can use on his ability, Detonate. So Detonate will cost you 1 Burning Ember every time you use it. Your character will just do this little snap, like Colonel Mustang kind of style. He'll snap, and then any target that's in range that has a damage over time burn from you on them will take a pulse of damage. And what's cool about this is it doesn't take away the duration of those dots. It just allows you to ignite them and cause them to erupt and deal damage to the targets there. So your primary focus is going to be building up your Cinder, getting your Burning Embers. Once you have your Burning Embers, you can then spend it by using Detonate. However, in order for Detonate to do anything, like if I snap, you'll notice it doesn't do anything. That's because there's nothing burning on the target. So build up the Burning Embers, but now we need to talk about how you apply damage over time effects to the target, as there are several different ways to do this. The first one is going to be Engulfing Flames, which is a really nice activator here. You activate this, and then you see that it's now got this little burning target on them, and now he's got this burn on him. I can snap my fingers, boop, and the dot is still there. You'll notice the dot time is not going down. It just does an extra eruption of damage, an extra pulse of damage, which is really nice. Next is going to be Searing Blaze, which is also another damage over time. So you have Engulfing Flames, which you activate, does that on as well. Then you can activate Searing Flames, and both of those dots are active at once. And then if we build up enough Cinder to get some Burning Embers and we snap, boom, you'll notice a whole bunch of different explosions going off there, because it's per dot as well. So by using your Engulfing Flames and Searing Blaze, both of these 2 abilities here, you can put dots on the target, and then once you have enough Burning Embers, or at least 1 Burning Ember, you can then activate your Detonate and go brrr, and you see these little ripples go off with crazy damage popping. And you also have a really nice AoE ability in Fireball. This is a ground target that you will shoot out. They will deal damage to all targets in an area. So you come over here and hit these guys. You can see you throw out the fireball, it pops. But what's cool about this, you'll notice it's got a damage over time effect. It has a very long cooldown, 2 charges at 30 seconds, but it does a big AoE dot, and it also does big AoE when it crashes down as well. So you can deal fire damage to all the targets and puts a dot on them. So you'll notice that we can put dot, 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 and then boop, and brrr. And you see that he's just spinning. He's going crazy. So stack up the dots, detonate, make sure you have enough Burning Embers to be able to do it, but that's kind of the core gameplay. Now, he's also got the same abilities, right? He's got a long-range interrupt with Scorch. You can use that to interrupt spell casting. He's also got a little flicker step that he can use to blink and teleport around, which is really useful. And then he's also got these other longer cooldown abilities with the Fire Frogs and the Apocalypse. Fire Frogs is a super fun ability. When you activate it, you'll spawn a bunch of frogs that jump forward and deal fire damage. They also apply a dot as well, so you can see another reason to detonate. So some frogs jumping around, which is really cool. And the damage over time can't critically strike, but it is another dot that you can use for detonates, which is super useful. Then you also have Apocalypse, which is a big 60-second cooldown. When you do it, it does damage in an area, which is really nice, and applies Searing Blaze to all enemies here, which is this red one. So you'll notice that if you use Searing Blaze, it has no cooldown, but you'll have to go to each of the targets and apply it manually. But if you say, like, say we have that, right? So each one of these, we had to use our Searing Blaze dot manually. If I walk over here and instead use Incinerate, bada boom, it's a real bit, or Apocalypse, it's a real big cooldown, big explosion, but you'll notice that they now have Searing Blaze on them. So you can actually just use like frogs, Searing Blaze, all these little dots and everything, put those on them, and then you can come over here and just detonate, and ba 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 ba, you see these little fireworks going off as the explosions hit. So you have some really easy combos. You can do basically a full combo by putting at the Fire Frog dot, using Apocalypse to apply Searing Blaze to all targets, put Engulfing Flames on the highest HP target that you have, throw out the fireball for an extra dot as well, so you can go boom, 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 build that up, and then if you have enough on your detonate here, we can even just use Incinerate real quick to make sure that we actually get enough. So once we have that there, then you can just go bop, 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 and just start snapping, and then you see numbers flying all over your screen. So that's Ardeos, very strong fire mage, super fun, more focused on building dots and detonating them using his detonate skill, a little bit more involved than I would say than Rime, but super fun and really cool once you can manage your uptime. Now, one thing that I want to mention about healers that I think is going to be either very heartwarming or a little confusing for some people, depending on how much MMO experience you actually have. But quick casting is in the game, normal casting in this game, and hover casting is in the game as well. So one thing that you'll note when you're playing a healer is that you have the option to just cast. So right now I have no target, so it defaults to casting to me. So if I use a heal, I can cast it that way. However, I can also target myself by either just kind of using the F buttons, the function keys on PC, or you can click on your character to add the target. See, the target is there. Now when I'm casting goes to it. However, one thing that I think a lot of, healer mains will enjoy is that hover casting is also in the game. So right now I can say, let's go over here and let's target an enemy, right? So let's target this ally for a heal. If I have this target dummy friendly targeted and I cast a heal, it's going to heal the target dummy because that's my target. However, hover casting is in by default, which means that I go over and hover my cursor over a character in my party. Even though I'm currently targeting the dummy, if I cast the heal, you'll notice that it healed me instead of the dummy, and that's because my cursor is hovering over it. So if I let go of that and cast, it'll cast to my target, but if I hover over it, I'm still not targeting myself. When I cast it, it'll cast me. So if you're playing healer and you're used to hover casting, that's already built into the game. You can just, regardless of whatever target you have, you can target the enemy for dealing damage, and then you can target yourself for healing or target an ally for healing and then go back to doing damage without changing targets at all. Or if you don't like hover casting, you'd rather, click to target or to use the function keys, F1 through F4 to be able to target, you can do that. Just be mindful of where your reticle is, where your crosshair is, because that cursor will actually cause you to target that person for a hover cast if you're not aware of it. Moving on to the healers, we've got Sylvie and Vigour. So very, very strong, one nature-based, one holy light-based. Let's start with Sylvie. She's definitely... This is going to be an interesting conversation because she is mechanically more involved than Vigour, but I would say that Vigour requires a little bit more finesse and planning. Since she has a lot of instant cast abilities and heals over time, it's more about predicting damage and being able to prepare for it in advance, whereas because Vigour has lots of big burst heals and cooldowns, he's more about reacting to damage, and both of them need to be doing damage the whole time. She'll be spawning mushrooms and sending them out, and he'll be trying to build up his passive so that he can actually use the runes that he needs when he needs them. But those are the two healers. But let's start with Sylvie as our first one here, as she is the first one on the left. Now, Sylvie is one with a forest. She kind of has this forest glow that follows her. She's got butterflies, and she's also this squirrel, deer, fox, cat thing hybrid. But let's talk about first dealing damage with her, because it actually is a very important part of her kit. And one thing that you will want to learn as you're getting better at Sylvie is managing dealing damage. This is one of the biggest things about endgame dungeon clearing, is that every person in the party or the group needs to be dealing damage, because a lot of the times it's a time trial. You're trying to complete it in a certain period of time. And so if the healer's not dealing damage, you will fall behind. However, luckily the devs have recognized this, and both the healers have ways to roll their her damage dealing into additional healing. So you really want to get comfortable doing her damage rotation, which is very simple, regularly, so that you can actually give you, the benefits that it gets. So the first thing to know about is going to be Nettle Bolt. This is your basic ability. You're going to be casting this over and over. What's cool about Nettle Bolt is that when it hits the enemy, you'll get the mana back from it. So if you're really low on mana from healing, you can just start casting Nettle Bolt and shoot it out. It deals damage. You'll be able to recover the mana from it as well. However, what's super important about Nettle Bolt is every time you deal damage with Nettle Bolt, whether it crits or not, it will lower the cooldown on one of your strongest throughput abilities, your Life Petal. This one requires a large amount of mana, and when you activate it, it'll put the pedal on the ground, and this thing just pulses healing to whoever has the lowest HP. It has a pretty good duration on it, 14 seconds, but while it's up, it's just healing the nearest nearby party member, you included, that has the lowest HP. So it's your topper. As a heal over time character, it's very important to be able to use this consistently. So now you'll see that Life Petal is on cooldown. We can't use it right now, but if I use Nettle Bolt, every time I shoot Nettle Bolt and it deals damage, you'll see that the cooldown on Life Petal is getting lower and lower. And trust me, even when you have all your heal over time effects up on targets, you will still rely on Life Petal to keep people from dying during the fight. So being able to cast Nettle Bolt as often as humanly possible will allow you to deal, you use Life Petal as much as possible. Keep in mind that this gives double the amount of cooldown reduction when you crit. It could be that late game you end up running Crit Strike on Sylvie just to be able to get that cooldown back, just because Life Petal is so there. But I'm not going to talk about gearing and statting here. We're just talking about the core kit. Now the second ability, as you can see, it's marked in green, is Prickly Vine. This one will spawn a Prickly Vine on the ground, and it just shoots. It's just like a little turret. So you can actually have multiples of these up at once. While it's up, it'll shoot and deal damage to the target. So a very easy way for you, combined with your Nettle Bolt, to be able to deal damage. You can see I can summon another one. So now I've got two of them shooting and I'm shooting. However, once these expire, so that when they run out of time and they expire, it will spawn a boom shroom down on the ground. So does Life Petal as well. So if I use Life Petal and I use another one of these branches, this one's probably about to expire here. When it expires, you'll see a mushroom spawns from the ground. When the petal expires, mushrooms will spawn, and you're collecting these mushrooms because it gives you a way to deal crazy damage as well. So more damage here, you're spawning that, there's mushrooms on the ground, and this all combines together into your last damaging ability, at least from your starter abilities, your Shroom Explosion. So when you have this ability on your bar, you'll notice down at the bottom, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 mushrooms on the ground, and I also have 4 on the explosion here for this. So when you activate this ability, it will send all of your shrooms that are on the ground into the target to deal AoE damage, and the damage is quite substantial. So you'll be able to shoot damage at the target, it deals damage, so we can actually activate this. You'll notice it go boom, look at that. So as you're storing it up, you're using your petals, you're putting down your vines, you're shooting out your nestle. You'll be able to do this over and over. As you start creating more of these mushrooms, you can then send them in for crazy burst damage. So if you're able to maintain putting down your prickly vines, putting down your petals, lowering the cooldown on your petals, you're generating mushrooms. These mushrooms will then be a very easy way for you to be able to deal damage, and you want to be able to maintain this. Before we even talk about healing, make sure you're doing that regularly, because those cooldowns will actually matter quite a bit. Once the shrooms spawn, we can have this pop up and they go brrrr, crazy damage burst on top of that. Small note is that when the shroom spawns, it's immature, and then after 3 seconds, it will become mature. So you see how it was still growing, and then once it became mature, it turned into this little goober that's just judging you. You want these little goobers. Once you have the little goobers, then you can send them out and they do damage, but for the first few seconds when they spawn, they don't count, so you have to kind of wait for that to go. Now let's talk about the actual healing portions. Now we know to be spawning our little prickly vines, we're shooting out the nestle bolts, we're using the shrooms when they spawn, and we're kind of spamming that, doing all of our cooldowns. And when people get into real trouble, we spawn this Life Petal, which heals everybody and then also generates more stuff. So we're doing that the whole time. However, how are you actually going to heal your teammates? And that's going to be with your 2 starting. There are more in the tree, as we talked about. So as you progress through this tree, you will find additional abilities in there. And of course, once you go to talents, depending on how far into the game you are, you'll unlock some really strong abilities that you can use for healing. But again, we're just talking about the beginning. You're going to have 2 different abilities to use here. The first one is going to be Flutter Call Heal, and the second one's going to be Flutter Call Restored Life. At the center of the screen, you'll notice there are 5 butterfly icons. There's 4 pink ones and 1 blue one. The blue one is going to be the most important. This is Flutter Call Project, and you can actually just, put this on any target that you want. Once you have it on it, it does that there as well. So while this blue butterfly is floating around someone, that player will receive 150% increased healing from your pink butterfly ability. So you're going to pretty much always have this on the tank unless a DPS gets bursted really hard and you want to pop the blue butterfly on them before healing them with your other abilities, and then you put the blue butterfly back on the tank. But this one gives you a crazy amount of healing increase from your pink abilities. And while the blue butterfly is on you, your Flutterfly healing on all allies is increased as well, and all your abilities have reduced mana cost. So right now I have the blue butterfly on me. You can put it on yourself when you're doing group healing. You can put it on a target when you're doing really targeted single target, pickup healing. So you have that built in there. And then your other 4 pink butterflies come from your Flutter Call heal. So while you target a person, you can actually put this Flutter Call heal on them. You'll notice that I have this little buff icon up here. It gives you a heal over time. And that's pretty much it. It just counts as Flutter Call healing, Flutterfly healing, and it just does a heal over time and lasts a good while. And when you have a full group, you'll have these pink butterflies on each individual person. Then you also have Restore Life, which is a much bigger heal. So you can see this guy swirling around them, and now this has this big up here. So you put it on the target. After a delay of 2 seconds, it will do a big burst of healing and then put a hot on them as well. So ideally, when you're healing a tank, you'll have all 3 of these. The blue butterfly for enhanced healing, the passive healing from the hot, and then you'll want to put the Restore Life on the target as well. And this will be kind of limited per the target that you have, right? So you want to be using the Restore Life on the target that is taking the most amount of damage, usually the tank, and heal them that way. So pop up the 3 that your heal, pop up your Restore Life, and then if you need to, pop down the petal, which will heal, and then move your blue butterfly either to the tank to heal them, to yourself to heal others, or to burst up a DPS really quickly to make sure they're still alive. Now, because you're a healer, you don't have an interrupt, unfortunately, so you can't do any interrupts on spell casting, but you do have a cleanse with Cure Ailment. You can target a target, cast this. This has a cooldown if it removes a harmful effect, but you want to be doing this pretty much on cooldown through most of the hard dungeons. Major ticking dots that get on your teammates can kill them in a couple of seconds. So if you don't get rid of it, they're going to die. And you also get some root effects, some CC effects, some other things that can be really harmful. So make sure you're cleansing from that as well. And just like every character in the game, you have the ability to have a movement skill. In this case, it is Hidden Trail. It just gives you a movement speed increase, and you kind of lower your aggro for a little while as well. So you can activate this. It has a 30-second cooldown, but allows you to reposition, keep up with your teammates in case you're not using your mount or whatever out of combat. And it also will lower your enmity or your aggro, whatever you want to call it, while you have that active to move around. And that is the core of Sylvie's kit. She's got some really cool abilities with like Jubilee and things like that. She can really do some crazy stuff. And as you get further up into the tree, there are some really fun abilities that you can use to be able to heal and also deal all kinds of like damage reduction and stuff. But you're managing your butterflies, putting things on the ground, creating a whole bunch of mushrooms and all of that. And that is the core of Sylvie's kit. And lastly, we come to Vigour, our holy paladin, holy priest, warrior of light that uses scrolls and runes to be able to heal people. He's a little bit more straightforward than Sylvie. Like, not, he can react to damage a little bit easier. It doesn't have to plan around having hots up all the time. And he's got some really cool effects that he can use, and also some pretty good damage too. Now, just like we did with Sylvie, let's first talk about the damage rotation for Mr. Guy here, Mr. Vigour, because it will be the foundation for how you manage. And this is even more important. With Sylvie, you're getting like some damage from the mushrooms back and also maintaining your mana, but with Vigour, it's almost required because the only real way you generate his passive resource, the runes, is by dealing damage. And so if you're not regularly dealing damage with Vigour, your healing will just diminish like crazy. You have to be able to generate runes and then spend those runes. So it's very important that you spend your time dealing damage with Vigour, or you will just be a very ineffective healer because of it. So starting with the very first ability here, Dawn Flare. This is a castable ability. You'll cast it and it deals damage. It deals dawn damage on the target, little smite there. However, you'll notice again in the middle of the screen, I have my unique resource on top of it. So once I deal enough, I will then get this little rune floating around. You see that little rune above my shoulder, and I got this little rune here. So you'll notice with his first ability, Dawn Flare, every time you cast Dawn Flare, it's 1/5 of a radiant rune. So if you cast it 5 times, you'll get a radiant rune, which is super cool. Then, once we have that Radiant Rune, so first let's spend it. So now we don't have any Radiant Runes, right? You'll notice that like half of my kit, Dawnbreaker Orb, the Soul Brand, my Ultimate, Luminous Barrier, Rune of Renewal, all of those are grayed out because you need runes to spend them. So you need to be building runes the whole time. I can't stress this enough. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just be spending Dawn Flare, shooting until we get just enough to get that rune up. Now we've got a rune and our other abilities are starting to show up. So for damage dealing, the other option that you have is Soul Brand. This will cost 1 rune. When you spend it, it puts a dot on the target. So it puts a little rune, little marker on it, and you'll notice that they start taking damage, some pretty good damage. This actually does a large amount of damage for a dot, especially from a healer as well, but it does cost a rune to do it. And then you'll notice that I'm starting to build a little bit of Radiant Rune resource here, and that's because over the course of the dot, though you spend 100% of a rune, you get 30% back on it. So it is kind of nice to have that on there. So you basically, while you're healing with Vigour, is you want to just be spamming this. Build up rune, get as many runes as you can. You want to be always just hungering for runes because it makes a really big difference. Because once you have runes, then you can start doing some cool stuff. Now, your other damaging option until we get later on, we have 2 more damaging options until you get later on into the tree and unlock more abilities, is going to be your Radiant Blast. This has a 10-second cooldown, uses a decent amount of mana to spend, and then once it goes on cooldown, you're good to go. So you have this dealing damage here. This is a big cone of light that comes out from in front of you. It will deal damage to enemies and heal allies that are in range. You'll notice that it will deal damage to the target, but also heal any allies that are in front of you as well. So we can really kind of wait for this to build up, and then we can kind of let this 2 seconds, 1 second, and if we get close enough, boom, you'll notice that it's a big, nice AoE heal. So this is going to be your other way to generate Radiant Runes and deal damage while also healing. So essentially, you want to be like using this, Dawn Flare over and over to build runes, and then when you get the opportunity, you want to shoot out to deal damage with your Radiant Blast, and then also use it to heal targets. And as you're doing this, you're going to start generating runes to spend. Now, if you're wanting to use runes to spend to deal a little bit more damage, you can do Dawnbreaker Orb. This costs 2 runes, so 10 casts of your Dawn Flare Orb to be able to get that, plus, a couple casts of Radiant Blast in there. However, once you shoot it, this is a healing, damaging orb that flies along the ground. So you activate it. Real cool effect there. It does this pulsing damage, deals damage to targets. It also will heal targets that it passes through as well, and then you can get some damage out of that too. So it gives you a healing, damaging orb. However, each ally and enemy touched by Dawnbreaker gets 1/10 of a rune. So if I were to use this across here, so you'll notice here, if I shoot this, you can see that all the targets that it hits, it's now filling up my runes. So if it hits 8 targets, that's 80% of a rune, so you get a rune back. So you can spend runes to get it and then get runes back when you spend it, so kind of managing that is important. So when you're playing Vigour, you're spamming your Dawn Flare over and over. If you get the opportunity, say there's a target with a lot of HP, you can throw out your Soul Brand to mark the target, and you're always just constantly using Radiant Blast on cooldown. So Dawn Flare, Dawn Flare, Dawn Flare, get your Radiant Blast, Dawn Flare, Dawn Flare, Dawn Flare, Radiant Blast, and that's how you're managing your runes to be able to deal damage. Now that we've got a good understanding of that, let's talk about how you use those runes to heal, because it's a big part of how you play Vigour. Now, your first ability to talk about here is going to be Greater Heal. This is a casted heal. However, keep in mind that the mana cost on this ability is exceptionally high. So while you can go and just heal targets using Greater Heal over and over, if you're in combat, you will run out of mana pretty quickly by doing this. This is kind of like a topping someone up, or if someone's really in danger of dying, you want to spam Greater Heal, but ideally you're managing your runes by attacking to be able to spend those runes for healing. The 2 primary ways you're going to spend those runes is going to be with Rune of Renewal and Luminous Barrier. You want to basically have Rune of Renewal on the tank at all times. This is a very nice mark for the target. So if I walk up to this target and I use like Rune of Renewal on them, they'll have that buff on them, and this lasts for a good 30 seconds. So while they have that on them, it will instantly heal the target. However, for 30 seconds, while they have Rune of Renewal on them, it will increase all of your healing by about 25%. So basically, if you mark this target and then use a heal on the target, you'll notice that it heals and then it echoes that heal a little bit later. So see how 12,000, then we got a 3,000, 12,000, then a 3,000. It echoes that. So as long as you're healing the target that has your Rune of Renewal on them, it increases your healing by 25% effectively, while also giving you an initial heal when you spend it. But you'll notice, I just used the rune, now I'm out of runes, now I gotta go back to attacking. So we can come over here and we can blast. We wanna build these runes up. Again, if you run out of runes, your healing is gonna fall down into the gutter. But there's another effect from Rune of Renewal, which is pretty cool here. When you cast Rune of Renewal on the same target target that already has it. So if they have Rune of Renewal on them already, and then you go and you build another rune and you cast it again, it will refresh the rune, but give them a big burst heal in single target. So you can actually walk over the target that has Rune of Renewal. So I have it on me right here. You'll notice the cooldown is like halfway done. If I activate it again, boom, I get a big fat heal, and it also refreshes the cooldown on it, which is really big. The bonus healing generated will also generate rune power relative to the value of the heal. So if you hit the target that has it, so if I heal myself right now, you'll notice that I'll get actually a little bit of rune energy. So like my runes are building up because I'm healing a target that has Rune of Renewal on them. So you always want to have this on the tank. Sometimes you put it on yourself or on another teammate or something if they're in a lot of trouble. And then when it's about to expire, you can refresh it by hitting it again. And you'll notice that by managing our runes properly, we can manage our mana a lot better as well. Your other option for spending runes is going to be Luminous Barrier. This ability is actually really, really strong, and it's kind of your response to movement. Sylvie can move around and heal and dash around, and most of her attacks, except for her Nettle Bolt, are like very instant and easy, whereas a lot of what you do is going to be casting greater heals and dawn flares over and over. So he's a lot more stationary. However, when you need to, if you have a target here, you can walk by it and use a rune to put a barrier on them. So it's like a little bubble. It actually absorbs a good amount of damage. It's like more than a greater heal's worth most of the time, and it lasts for 8 seconds as well. So a really easy way, like if you have a whole bunch of runes built up from fighting targets and using all your abilities, and you have that built up there, you can then spend it to quickly pop a bubble on somebody if you feel like you need to. There's boss fights that you need to be able to switch over to using the bubble while you move. Like there's a bunch of ground attacks on the ground or a big AoE you have to avoid. It allows you to use that while moving, which is useful. And lastly, for your starter kit healing outside of your ultimate and other abilities you unlock later is going to be Circle of Light, which is a ground target. You just put it down and it does healing on all targets in the radius as well, which is super useful. It has a cooldown and a lot of mana cost to it as well, but it is very effective for how many targets. As long as it hits 2 targets, it's basically the same as a greater heal. If it hits 3 or 4 targets, you can get even more value out of it. So really nice to be able to combine this with like your Radiant Blast combined with your Circle of Light, and then any runes that you spend on targets as well to get a whole bunch of healing from that. Now again, Vigour is a healer, so he doesn't have an interrupt, so you can't use any interrupts there, and then he does have a cleanse as well. This is a 6-second cooldown if it cleanses the target and it removes a dot or something like that, so you want to be paying attention to that as well. And that's what we got. Pretty long video, but I wanted to go through all of the characters in the game, all the heroes in the game right now, and kind of go over it. If there's interest, I can do other videos like just an introduction to the game or dungeon guides, things like that, or builds for each individual character. But at least I figure this would be the most useful video that people can get out of the game of like, hey, I want to play, what do the characters do, and what do I want to fill as far as role goals in a group for Fellowship. So if you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments down below. The open beta playtest is available on Steam now through September 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific. Be sure to sign up on Steam with the link in the description and the comments. If you're looking forward to the game, early access launches on October 16th. Be sure to wishlist the game on Steam now. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.